Bros before everyone, how homosocial desires and social dominance shape the patriarchy. Hello, hello, and welcome back to another episode of Stay at Home Feminist, where we unpack the patriarchy one ridiculous norm at a time. Today, we're diving into something juicy: why men are so obsessed with impressing other men. Well, it's not because they're secretly in love, but also maybe. Today, we are talking about homosocial theory, homosocial desire, and social dominance theory. So basically, I saw a TikTok from @Shamsito, I don't know if I'm butchering that, where she discussed social dominance theory and homosocial desire. And that was the first time I've ever heard of these concepts, and it blew my mind. And I immediately knew I had to do an episode about that because I just wanted to learn about it for myself. So hopefully you're interested in it too. You know the drill: like, follow, subscribe, do all the things. Let us know how you're feeling about this show. We're new here. We want to know how it's going. And per usual, I'm your host, CC Binx. I have a little bit of a glow up happening. I don't know if you can spot the differences. Your girl was depressed, so she ran through the drill. I did Moxie and BBL laser to my face. If you know, you know. If not, we can talk about it in another episode if you guys are curious. And did Dysport, aka like it's like the same thing as Botox. And I got my hair dyed. So I did the whole freaking run through of all of my glow up go-tos. And couldn't be happier, except for the Dysport is sitting a little wonky in my face. I almost didn't want to film because I'm feeling a little insecure about it. I don't know if you can tell from this angle, but it's I have a little bit of a droop going on, and Botox or the neurotoxin is supposed to, you do it to lift and get a cat eye, and it's having the opposite effect. And that's never happened to me. And I'm I moved to a new city, and then this was a new person I was seeing, and they were qualified and stuff, so I was not worried. And it hasn't been the full 2 weeks, but it's been 10 days. So we're really coming up, or 11 days. So we're really coming up on the 2 weeks, and it keeps getting droopier and droopier. So that's what's happening with my face. But other than that, I'm feeling really great about my glow up. And yeah, it didn't really, help my depression, but it did make me feel hot. So that's something. Fake it till you make it. We can talk about why I'm depressed another day. I'm not ready to talk about that yet, but I will share what's been going on eventually. Also, the state of the world is how can you not be depressed right now, even if you don't have real shit going on? But anyways, homosocial desire. Let's get into it. So what's homosocial desire? What's homosocial theory? What's social dominance theory? Basically, they're all fancy academic terms for why the patriarchy is basically one long episode of The Bachelor, with men competing for the ultimate rose power. You may have experienced this IRL if you've been with a guy who's can be maybe sweet or tender with you, and then once he's in front of his friends, his personality totally changes, or he's really different depending on who he's around. 1 minute he's nice, the next minute he's acting like it's a Fast and the Furious audition and just totally broing out. So yeah, we're breaking that down today. Let's get into it. So basically, homosocial theory is about same-sex bonding. Nothing romantic or sexual, but it's about men finding ways to validate their masculinity through bonding, essentially. So think locker room talk, golf outings, or the infamous boys' night out. And let's preface this by saying that there's nothing wrong with men looking to other men for support or building communities, especially ones that are uplifting. And there is a male loneliness epidemic, which we will get into in a later episode. So I'm not trying to make the argument that men should just shut up and sit at home and not interact with each other. But I do really want to sort of take a deeper look under the hood of the patriarchy here and homosocial dominance theory and homosocial theory, and think about the ways that this can be really, really toxic and harmful. Why do men rely so heavily on other men to validate themselves? And when all of them are playing this competition of, I am the most masculine, at what point is it too much? At what point is it dangerous? Especially for women. I think one thing, the initial video I saw on TikTok that blew my mind was a lot of times the boys will be being the boys, but they have a girl, but the girl's like on the side as a trophy. So the man doesn't find like true partnership or vulnerability within his like female partnership. He goes to the boys for that. And that's why a lot of women end up feeling really like empty in their relationships because their needs and wants aren't being prioritized if you're like over here just doing it all for the boys, like bros before hoes. But at what point does that stop? Like when is it bros before everything? And like what is that line of it being like a normal friendship, being a good friend to being like toxic masculinity? I think the thing that stood out for me when I started learning about this is the ways in which this sort of creates like a toxic feedback loop for performative masculinity. I mean, all you have to do is go on to X, which I'm not on that platform, but all you have to do is go on to X to see like that algorithm doing this to themselves. And you really, really see it a lot right now with the way in which men interact with each other. And like, it's a little scary looking. It's a little scary looking at its current form is all I'll say. I mean, that's not all I'll say, but I digress. So homosocial theory really analyzes the pressure that men have to impress other men. And I'm sure that it goes back to, the caveman days and how our monkey brains are wired, like so many things do. But essentially, it focuses on the way that men seek approval to bond with other men. And they do this by reinforcing traditional gender norms. And if those traditional gender norms are toxic masculinity, like it creates that funky ass feedback loop that we don't really want. In dating, men often perform their masculinity to gain status within their social circles. And sometimes this will come at the expense of their partner. And that's sort of what I was alluding to earlier, whether it's that emotional availability or if they are like trying to do things that crosses their relationship or partner's boundaries to impress other men and show off to the guys. Again, like boys' night out or whatever. If you watch Love Island, like think about when Casa Amor happens and all the men start acting a fool when their girls aren't around just to like impress the other guys. And it's weird. That's kind of what I'm talking about here. No shade to like the men on Love Island, but like some of you, yeah. Since I am pretty confident there are no men listening to this, let's focus on its impact on women. If you are dating someone who is programmed to care about what their boys think more than you, you're probably going to often feel objectified and treated as a symbol of male success rather than an individual. Like you're going to be that arm candy, you're going to be that trophy. And there's nothing wrong with like a man putting his woman on a pedestal, but that's not what this is. That is like showing her off in a way of like, look how cool I am. And I think like the thread that I'm tugging at here is that I often see men who hate women in relationships with women, or maybe hate's a strong word, men who don't like women in love with women. And that is a really dangerous place because I think that like the patriarchy tells men to really not like things that are feminine and girly. And if that is how you're programmed, like when you are in a heterosexual relationship, like that's going to seep through and you are not going to like the partner you're with, or you're going to think what they like is dumb or yada, yada, yada. And then the woman in that relationship is going to end up feeling like neglected because her needs, wants, desires, whatever are like dumb and girly and stupid. And that's why it's important we like all kind of peek back through that mirror of like all of these little societal norms going on, which can be really toxic. It gets a little more sticky when you think about a man living his life like to keep a good status in his friend group or like to impress other men. That's when it starts getting a little dicey if like that's what they're living for. If that's the case, he's probably going to be dismissive to you, as I just said. Like if you like something, or like this is not for the men at the Taylor Swift concert or the Beyonce concert with their partner who go there and like appreciate their music and have a good time because their partner likes it, whether it's their favorite artist or not. This is for the men that would be like, ew, why are you doing that? Like not only am I not going to go with you to this concert, but I'm going to make you feel stupid for wanting to spend money on that kind of thing. Like that's who we're talking about. And again, like do things without your partner. If they don't want to go to a Taylor Swift concert, like that's fine. Go with whoever. It's like not, that doesn't automatically make them a bad partner. It's more that person that's going to make you feel bad for doing that because it's silly or stupid or whatever in their world. So yeah, it's going to lead to them being dismissive and probably controlling or just like straight up disrespectful to you. So that's what we're working with here. And you are definitely, if your partner hasn't unlearned this, you are definitely going to feel undervalued. You are definitely going to feel sidelined. Like how could you not if they are prioritizing male partnerships over emotional intimacy within your relationship? Like, I'm thinking about this just in like partnerships, but I'm like, take it one step further and like imagine that's the father of your kids and he cares more about like what his boys think than like what's good for you and your family and your partnership. Look out for those red flags when you first start dating, because it is a lot harder to end things with someone the more you build a life with them, the more you intertwine your lives with them. So what should women be aware of? This is sort of a really broad net we're casting, but like, I think number one, pay attention to how a man behaves when he's around other men, especially if he's belittling you or like ignoring you or just being dismissive to like seem cool in front of his friends. Or if he's like doing extra things that he might not normally do to seem tough in front of his friends. Like, eek. Red flag, red, ding, 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 red flag, red flag. And just be mindful and notice if your partner does things to prioritize his relationship with his friends over your relationship. Or like if he'd rather prioritize impressing his friends over nurturing your relationship is maybe a better way to say that. And again, this isn't me trying to be like men shouldn't have any friends or shouldn't prioritize their friend groups or shouldn't want to seek connection with other men. Like that's not the point. Again, we are going to talk about the male loneliness epidemic in a few episodes. And like I strongly believe that men now more than ever need more connection with men, but it's like what type of connection, and is it reinforcing this toxic masculinity, or is it like actually being a supportive friendship to a man? So I'm not trying to say men shouldn't have friends, but like there are signs if they are caring a bit too much about their friends in the wrong ways and maybe ways that aren't healthy for you. It also, for me, that all just screams like emotional immaturity. And I can't imagine wanting to be with a man who was like that, personally, for me. So yeah. Okay, so that's homosocial theory. What is homosocial desire? Because that sounds a little more spicy than it is. Maybe not. Homosocial desire kind of takes it one step further. And it's when men seek approval from other men over anyone else. And that is really when things start to get a little precarious. And again, it's kind of weird because it's not like a romantic thing, but it is about like earning a spot in the man's club. And like, how can you have healthy relationships with women if you prioritize impressing men over anyone else in your life, or you care about their opinion and their feelings more than your partner? Like it just starts to get a little weird, no? I think one of the biggest things like baked in here is that, as I referenced before, like men are taught not to like women or feminine things. Men are taught to not play with dolls. Men are not taught to not throw like a girl or not to cry like a girl or whatever all those sayings are that people grow up with from cradle to the grave. It often seems like men aren't taught how to be men. They're taught how not to be a woman. Like I don't see young boys being taught like, here's a great way to be a boy in this world. It's more like, again, like don't throw like a girl, shaming them for having emotions or crying because that's feminine. And it's like, okay, so what is it to be a man? What are the things? Because it kind of seems like you are just like, don't be like a girl, don't be like a woman. And if you're taught that so much, it kind of makes being a woman or a girly or any of that like a really negative thing. When you look at that, it's kind of like, no wonder so many men are like, ew, I don't care what my partner thinks. I care what my boys think, because they don't value women. And we live in a society that doesn't value women. And so like, it's no wonder men don't, if they're not taught to. And if men don't value women, why are they in relationships with women? Well, they start using them as status symbols. In this sort of dynamic, women will become props or some sort of symbol of success to show off to other men. And like, ugh. Gross. I feel like we've all seen this happening and it's so normal that you don't even think about it. Like men that can't afford to popping bottles at clubs, like they aren't doing that for women. They are doing that to impress their bros. And I think it all stems from like insecurity. And I think, again, it's like, how could you not be insecure if you're not taught about connecting with yourself and finding who you are, and you're just taught like all these things that like shame certain parts of you? Like, of course you're going to be insecure and weird and need to like reach out for connection in this weird twisted way. It's actually really sad when you think about it. I think one of the things that make homosocial desire a little bit more like in that toxic masculinity sphere is that this drive for male bonding is often fueled by competition for dominance, competition for approval. Like it's very competitive. It can be very like cutthroat sort of energy, very patriarchy, very on brand with the patriarchy. In relationships, this can manifest as a man's need to compete with other men for validation, which, you know, may look like using his partner as a trophy, but it may look like him being very controlling with his partner. For a woman in this situation, you might feel a little used. We want to be valued. We don't want to be props. We want to be real people. You might also feel like your relationship really lacks emotional depth if this is the case for you, because the man is really focused on external validation more than a genuine connection. And as a woman, you probably will also feel some sort of pressure to like conform to a specific role or like keep a certain standard to like boost your partner's status. Like it's hard not to play into that if a person you're in a relationship with, like your worth is X, Y, and Z, like you're going to want to live up to that all the time. And again, that's when things can get a little toxic. I think like it's so hard because the world we're living in right now really, really is headed toward / sort of always been in this like women are second-class citizens type of energy. Like women aren't at the forefront of society in the ways that men are. You know, we've talked about different aspects of it throughout each episode. Like healthcare and the patriarchy was a good example of that. And I see it gearing like more and more that way as things progress. You would hope it would make things more equitable and not sort of like bringing us back to a different era. Make what great again for who? Remind me? And I think that's why I was really, really interested in talking about this topic, because when it's happening at such a like macro level, it can be hard to be like, why is this so mainstream to be like saying things like your body, my choice, for example, you know, or like, why is it so mainstream to be so anti-trans or anti-queer or anti-women? And it's like, well, look at the homosocial desire and see the ways that men are just trying to be the most masculine man in a group. And the leaders right now are reflecting that being a leader and masculine is being hateful towards these groups. It's like, no wonder that's not like fringe right wing anymore. No wonder that's mainstream if like that's the example that's being said. And when you look at like why Trump won being the president, it's like he went for those young men. He went for young men. He went on those podcasts specifically gearing to young men to try and convince them of like, this is how we be a man. Or like Fox News anchors literally were like, if you vote for Kamala Harris, you're gay. Like that happened. Like people said that, you know, like that was like what was happening during our last election cycle. So now more than ever, if people are like, why are we here in this way? How have we gotten here? Like we need to look at these really nitty gritty social norms that make it like a breeding ground for toxic masculinity. And that's not good for anyone, even men. Like men are probably really, really harmed by this. But, you know, like it's not good for anyone. The patriarchy is bad for everyone. And if you look at the fucking ways men are acting out right now, it's like you can see that they aren't thriving, even though they might be having the competitive edge and owning the libs and owning everyone else and rah, rah, but it's like, if you got to be that hateful, you are not in a good place, my dude. You are not. Look within, look within, look within. It's scary. It's scary out there. I also think the other hand of social dominance theory, like as I was reading about it and like reading about one of the biggest ways that it affects women is like women are going to be the trophy instead of the prize. Like you should be the prize in your relationship and not like a trophy that he carries around to show off to his bros. And I think a lot about the ways in which women really gain status or gain wealth or gain security by like manipulating men. And we are very here for that on the internet, and like myself included. I'm like, yeah, make his pockets hurt. Again, another thing that's in the mainstream right now, like that is like sort of trendy to be like, I'm an OnlyFans or this and that. Like I have an OF page or I have like, I'm a sugar baby. Like those things are really supported in the mainstream and like they should be, but it's like to people who see that and they're like, oh, women are out to get men, or women just want to use men, or women. It's like, no, this is the norm. We are just playing with the cards we're being dealt. Like men want to make us trophies. Like I will flip that and reverse that and be maximizing this. Am I making sense? I feel like I'm not speaking this very clearly as I want to be, but hopefully you get the point I'm trying to make. Anyways, women, do what you want because men are out here doing this. Men are out here having their daddy issues themselves and saying that it's us. And so do what you got to do. That's all I'll say. Sprinkle, sprinkle. If you know, you know. So that's homosocial theory. That's homosocial desire. And that really leverages us into the next thing I want to talk about, which is social dominance theory, which is basically the patriarchy's power playbook. Social dominance theory is more about like hierarchies. Again, it's like social dominance theory. Like just take that at face value. Basically, society runs on like who's on top. And surprise, surprise, men have kind of set up the system where they always get to play king of the hill and they always get to be like the dominant ones on top. social dominance is why the patriarchy thrives. It rewards men for competing and keeping women out of the game, or basically straight white man, but I'll just say straight man, out of the game. It rewards them for that. So that enforces the patriarchy, because if the people who are at the top keep winning and they know how to win, like they're going to keep doing it that way. They're not going to make room for others. They're going to just keep like mine. And if you think I'm wrong, let's talk about all the billionaires that are running this country right now. Like, come on. It's right in front of us, babes. Again, if you're like a little confused and you're like, this bitch is crazy, look no further than the alpha male myth that perpetuates this hierarchy. Like, men literally are out there being like, I am an alpha, you are a beta, because they are trying to be like the dominant one. Like, they are trying to prove their social dominance over other people, over other men. And men can be very fixated on being an alpha. Insecure men, I should say. I think the funniest thing about this is that secure men really don't care if they're perceived as feminine, or they really don't care if they're perceived as beta, because like they're secure in themselves and they're fine. Like, they're not out here needing to prove themselves and lash out and project these insecurities of being like, I'm the alpha, I'm the most dominant. And like, if you feel the need to do that, that's kind of a red flag, babe. Like, that's kind of a red flag. And I think the patriarchy really gets to wield social dominance as a tool to keep women in more supporting roles. And we've seen like a reemergence of trad wife vibes. And again, like, stay-at-home feminists, I'm all about like, do what makes you happy. And if that is staying at home, great. If that is working a 9-to-5, great. If that's being an entrepreneur, great. If that's being a full-time mom, great. Like, it is just more like, do what you want to do, whatever that is. And if you do want to be a trad wife, like, okay, like, yeah, that's great too. But like, do we have to be like submissive? Like, do we have to be like doormat vibes? Cause like, you know, I never want to yuck someone's yum, especially if you're a woman, but like, like, come on, let's not be out here being like, just being a supportive role, because no one is meant to just be a supportive role. Like, you should be the main character in your own story, whatever that looks like for you, And I think that's more of the point I'm trying to make. And it gets tricky because the patriarchy sort of wields social dominance to keep women under the glass ceiling in more of a supporting role. We see it in heterosexual relationships, but we also see it in the workplace. Like, we see it in the ways that there are less C-suite executives who are female. We see it in the way that women are more likely to be nonprofit workers or nurses, like those sorts of things. Like, the proof is in that pudding. Like, it is so baked into our society in those ways. Again, like, look at corporate America. Women have to work twice as hard, maybe a little more, to climb the ladder of success, while mediocre men get promoted all the time just because they're confident. Not only do mediocre men get promoted, like, men get to fail upwards. Like, and if you don't believe me, look at who's running our country right now. Like, I feel so crazy even talking about this, because I'm like, we're so in the thick of it, you guys. We're so in the thick of it right now. Jeez. And the reason it's so important to examine social dominance theory is because it really explains how hierarchies are maintained through power imbalances. Like, the whole goal is for there to be a power imbalance, and we can see where those discrepancies lie and who's gaining from that and who is, you know, being oppressed because of that. And not only is success and power maintained through power imbalances, but men often view like dominance, alpha, toxic masculinity as the marker of success. And like, back to how this affects women, other than just like on the micro level, like, bro, of course you're not going to be happy in a relationship like that because you're not being valued. Like, it creates unhealthy dynamics. Especially when men feel the need to assert control and like assert their power over others. That often trickles down into their relationships. And like, that's not good. And if you don't believe me, why don't you go look up the #1 cause of death for pregnant women in the United States? I might be global, actually, but look it up. You know what it is? It's homicide. It's them being murdered. So if you don't think men have a control issue, maybe go think again. Bleak facts. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but this is real. This is real life, guys. We got to acknowledge it and move through it so that we can address it and not normalize it. So yeah, of course it's going to create unhealthy dynamics within your relationship with the man as a woman if he feels this need to assert control. And, you know, the most extreme example is death by this. But there's subtle and there's overt control. And if your man is playing into social dominance theory, like you are probably going to be facing one of those. It's either going to be subtle or overt. And I don't know, but that might look like financial domination, like not being able to have your own finances in that kind of way, decision making without your input. It's a partnership. Your partner should always want your input. And yeah, worse, emotional manipulation, which we see all the time in relationships. At the end of the day, one of the points I'm really trying to make is partners who are influenced by social dominance theory will probably struggle to view you as a woman as an equal. And this is going to lead to dismissive, patronizing, and probably incredibly toxic, maybe even dangerous behavior. Like if someone isn't seeing you as equal, it means they don't see you as someone who is as valid or as real as them. And that's when it starts to get really scary. And then it often puts women in a place where they're kind of forced back into more traditional roles, or they're expected to be submissive or accommodating to maintain harmony. And so, yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, the more you pull out the string, the more it's hard not to see everywhere. And I hope this isn't like a super depressing, like scary episode, because like I am super depressed and scared right now, and that's probably coming through. But this is just one of those things that it's like, again, like when I watched that initial video, I was like, oh my gosh, why have I never heard about any of this before? And the more I looked into it, the more I was like, this is so baked in everywhere. And it's sort of like, just like in the same ways that like the patriarchy and toxic masculinity, like, and capitalism and all of these things can be like the root of everything wrong in so many people's like lives on a micro level within their interpersonal relationships, but also on a macro level with like the ways in which laws and systems are being used in a way to infringe on people's safety and human rights. And we see that happening very, very violently. I don't know what the word I want to use here is. Very, very intensely. And I hate to be an alarmist or be panicky, but like your girl's anxious and that's just how she rolls. So if you have a partner and you're listening to this and you're like, girl, I don't know how to digest this information, what should we be aware of when dating, or if we're already in a relationship, or just like with men in our lives? It could be like siblings, fathers, friends, you know, whatever. This is basically like the pick-me of boyhood, except for like when girls are pick-me's, I guess they're upholding the patriarchy and really dangerous too, and like electing people who are taking away their rights. So I guess they are also very dangerous, but like men who are pick-me's to their own men are like, can lead to being violently dangerous as well. So just no one be a pick-me. Pick-me rehab for men. That's what this episode should be called. This is the men's pick-me rehab. Just stop trying to impress each other so much and go to therapy, please, for goodness sake. Anyways, what should we be looking out for in like a sort of interpersonal level and not, you know, the impending doom of society? I laugh. Sorry. I laugh when I'm sad and uncomfortable. Watch for signs of controlling behavior. Number one, like a partner making all the decisions or dismissing your opinions. I don't know if you guys read the Colleen Hoover book, It Ends With Us, and watched the movie. I know there's like a lot of drama around Jason Baldoni and Blake Lively and all of that. So like whoever did watch the movie and read the book, I really like Colleen Hoover's books, which apparently is like controversial because she's like, people are unhappy with her and how she's portrayed domestic violence and things like that. So my bad. I didn't know that when I liked it. I just genuinely liked it. And then all this drama came out and everyone was like, yeah, F her. And I was like, wait, what? So before I knew that that it was like a no to like her, I liked her. Sorry if that makes me a pick-me. It's my truth. I read like so many Colleen Hoover books and I really, really liked It Ends With Us. That was one of the first ones of hers I read because it was all over Book Talk and I was like, dope, I'm going to read it. I read it in like a day. It felt like probably more like a week, but like that's really fast for me to finish a book in that amount of time. And then I bought like 10 more of her books. Anyways, my favorite parts of her book that they left out of the movie, and I was fucking pissed, is that when Lily, Blake Lively's character, goes to, what's her name, the sister's party, she, in the book, brings a gay guy who's like her best friend from work, the place she was working before she opened the flower shop. And Ryle is like furious that she brings a guy with her and is like, you brought him to piss me off, da, 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 da. Like, why would you bring another man here? And like acting a fool. And she's like, yo, chill, he's gay. Like, what's your fucking problem? He's like my gay bestie. Like, why are you being weird? And like, when that scene happened, your girl's been around the block a few times. Your girl's been dating toxic men before. Not currently. My husband is a saint. He's the best. But you know, I had to learn the hard way what are red flags by living through them and seeing that behavior in the book. I knew where we were headed. I knew we were headed towards violence because I was like, there's no way you can be that controlling before even dating someone and it not be a red flag. So that was a long tangent, but I'm so pissed they didn't include that in the movie because I feel like his abuse kind of just comes out of nowhere and it's confusing as a viewer. And B, like the whole reason I like the book is because it left you these breadcrumbs of like warning signs to look for, and they didn't do that in the movie. So I don't care where you stand with the Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni and Colleen Hoover drama. That's my beef with the movie. I was so pissed. And I took my husband to watch it because he knew I was obsessed with Colleen Hoover. And honestly, I've been like a Blake Lively stan too before. I don't want to comment on how I'm feeling about it now, but like I was a Gossip Girl. Like I grew up on Blake Lively. So I was like excited to see her in the movie. Love Colleen Hoover. I was like, we have to go. We went out like opening day weekend. You know what I'm trying to say? And we went on the opening weekend, which if you know me, like I don't go to the movie theaters. Like I really, really don't like going to the movies. I think it's kind of gross and weird. And I have a small bladder, so it's like stressful for me to be having to sit somewhere for like more than an hour at a time without peeing. So I always wait for the movie to come out. But I like ran to the theaters to watch this Colleen Hoover movie. And when they left that scene out, I literally like the whole way home was like bitching about it to my husband, being like, bro, yeah, whatever. Anyways, all I have to say is controlling behavior. Fuck the movie for doing that, because controlling behavior is like the number one sign of things going south is what I'm trying to say. And that's what I appreciated about the book, because that's been my experience with men who are very toxic, is like the signs I missed was them being controlling. And they're never being controlling for controlling sakes. They're being controlling because they have your best interest, but it's like, that was never the case. You're being manipulated and they're controlling you. So anyways, that was kind of a tangent, but I feel how I feel. Another thing you should be looking out for, and again, this kind of goes with the controlling, is like, are they challenging subtle power imbalances early on? Like whether it's who manages the finances or whose career takes priority, or whose like family or friends they get to see more. Like pay attention to those things. Like, is he valuing like you and your world and your wants and your needs and your relationship? Or is it not that? And kind of putting you in a position where you're losing some of that power and stability maybe you had before you met him. I think it's also important to sort of focus on the way that this whole homosocial dominance theory, all of those dynamics, like the way that that impacts culture, because I've kind of gone in and out this whole episode of being like, what is it on a micro level versus what is it on a macro level? And I think it's important to, analyze it from different perspectives, because I think it affects us in so many ways. And the more I learn about this, the more I was like, oh, that's what that was. Like, oh, that thing has a name. Like men being this way has a name. It's a real thing. Like, and now you're going to see it. Trust me, if you weren't paying attention before, now you're going to see it everywhere. You're going to see it in everything. You're going to see it in movies and TV shows with people like you're going to see it in so many things. In books, like that's like the whole rant I just went on about the Colleen Hoover book. Like you're going to see it everywhere. So how are some of the ways it impacts our culture? Well, I think male-centered cultures, we talked about this a lot on the episode, and that is the patriarchy, is it's centering like masculinity and power, and like, whereas the matriarchy isn't just the patriarchy with mascara and lipstick on. Like the matriarchy is a completely different structure. The patriarchy is a pyramid. The matriarchy is a circle. And the matriarchy is centered around mothers and children and community and society, where the patriarchy is like power and social dominance and men focused, it's sort of that thing. So male-centered cultures are best freaking friends with homosocial dynamics, because two peas in a pod, two sides of the same coin kind of thing. From Wall Street to the NFL, male-dominant spaces thrive on homosocial dynamics. And in these spaces, women are often excluded or tokenized or like vilified. Speaking of the NFL, can we talk about how Taylor Swift, not to bring up more of this, the people from the web of the Ends With Us drama, but Taylor Swift, unrelated to the It Ends With Us drama, has always had her own drama since starting to date Travis Kelce, because she goes to the games and people are like pissed. Like they're furious that a woman is there and has any sort of attention and power, like in the same arena as these powerful men who are the center of attention because it's a football game. Like, do you get what I'm saying? Like that crazy reaction, like that is this at play. Like that way that men are furious about her not like watching her boyfriend from home. Like, what are you even mad about? Like they need their special little men to be the center of attention and to have the most power and yada, yada, yada. Like that's what's happening there. It's homosocial dominance, all of those things, all those theories wrapped up in one. I think like it's also like the bro code maybe taken a little too far, or like the bro code in harmful aspects. Again, I'm not like, hey, men shouldn't have friends, men shouldn't be bros. Like friendships are very important. Like a support system is very important. But it's more of like that harmful culture it could have, you know. One thing that comes to mind is toxic workplace cultures. I think we've seen that a lot in certain industries, like think bro-y startups. But also if you are abiding by your bro code over your own moral code or over you and your partner and your family's like needs, like that's bad. And that's normal in a lot of cultures. That's weird. And I don't like that. And at the end of the day, it creates these dynamics where misogyny thrives. Not only does misogyny thrive, it thrives in a way that goes unchecked. And often when women disrupt these male-centered spaces, they are vilified, scrutinized, threatened. Again, like look no further than Taylor Swift going to her boyfriend's football game. Like in what world is that so threatening and like disruptive? But because of these misogynistic patriarchal norms, like they came for her throat because she went to a football game and because people decided to pay attention to her. Like it's so backwards. So yeah, I'm glad we deconstructed homosocial culture. I think once you spot these dynamics, you can't unsee them. And that's why it's really important to talk about them and bring it out of the darkness and into the light. I think for women, you know, Pick Me Rehab for us today is one way to navigate this reality of a world we live in for yourself is to not be a pick-me and to decenter men and build women-centered communities that will keep you safe. And so if you do find yourself in a harmful situation, like you have that support and maybe even that guidance to like shepherd you away from that, because it can be very violent and very hard to leave a toxic situation like that. The easiest way to do it is to never get into it. And obviously hindsight's 2020. So that's way easier said than done. But the more you have those women-centered communities and spaces, the more you have sort of guidance and support and guardrails in making decisions in your life and having people help vet things you're going through before it gets too intense. And again, part of centering women and decentering men is like to not seek that male validation so much so that you end up in a situation where you are just not an equal partnership, because the way you get there is by betraying yourself and your own boundaries. And I know that's a lot to process, and I really don't want anyone to feel like wrong for having been in these situations or maybe currently being in these kind of situations, because I've been in them. I have a really great, healthy relationship now, but every relationship I was in before this was really bad. And I was really not able to be the strong feminist woman you see in front of you today. Like that took me being silenced and being mistreated to get to a place where I am now. So if you are in that place, like you shouldn't be the one that feels shame. Like F your partner for being toxic. Like that's not on you. And also like we are in control of our own lives and our own emotions. And we need to see the ways that we contribute to the dynamics in our lives so that we can focus on ourselves and create safe boundaries and safe relationships with people. And yeah, let's dive into today's episode of Pick Me Rehab. I gave a little leadway into it, but I think the questions we should explore together today with this topic in mind is the ways in which women can be gatekeepers to the patriarchy. I know this episode is focused a lot on how men seeking male validation can be toxic, but in our world, how does us seeking that male validation and being a pick-me contribute to that and kind of make us the gatekeepers for this? I think oftentimes women can unconsciously or consciously reinforce male-dominated spaces, patriarchal norms, and perpetuate that a little bit to gain acceptance, which like, you know, we're all out here trying to survive. So I get it. Again, no shame, no blame, but like, let's just call a spade and spot it so we can move forward and maybe not do that as much anymore. So if you want, I encourage you to journal or just pause when I ask these questions and reflect a little bit yourself, because as much as I'm happy to share my experiences or my thoughts on these, like being able to uncover your thoughts or maybe some of your unconscious beliefs is where you really get to have those breakthroughs and make make that change that I want to empower you to. So first question, have you ever found yourself playing one of the guys to fit in? Feel free to pause. If not, that's okay too. I have shared this before where I am a reformed pick-me. I used to be the biggest pick-me, and being one of the guys was like my bread and butter. I do have a twin brother, so I think naturally the way I grew up, like I had a lot of guy friends a lot of my life because me and my twin brother, like our social groups were intertwined. So I like was hanging out with him and his friends a lot. So that was just sort of like baked into my life. And also it definitely set me up in a way where I was happy to play one of the guys or be one of the guys and be one of the bros. And I totally did that because I wanted to not be like other girls and be extra special and cool. And that was like pick me 101, pick me essential pick meism. Like, come on, come on. So that was my bad. I've lived and I learned. Again, I don't say like the things I've learned to shame people if they are still in those ways. I say them because I wish there was someone when I was in that phase who could gently call me in around it and unpack sort of like how normal or enforced that was in my life and in society. Like I didn't think there was anything wrong with it at the time until I started learning more. And that's what life is. It's all about learning and growing and evolving. So we live and we learn, babes. We live and we learn. And my next question for Pick Me Rehab is, how can we break the cycle of women acting as gatekeepers in male-centered environments? I think a lot of harm, again, feel free to pause, journal your own experience of that. I'd love to hear from you guys of how you feel about this. But for me, I think currently on more of a macro level, we really see the harm that being these gatekeepers in male-centered environments is so detrimental. I think like look at the ways in which people are gatekeeping like the social dominance theories and the way that it is eroding human rights for immigrants, queer people, trans people, women, like, yeah, that part. That part. Anyways, that's it for Pick Me Rehab. It was a little bit of a shorter segment today, but I figured we were just really getting into some heavier concepts today. So it would be good to just focus on that a little bit. But we can just jump in and end it with some feminist affirmations. I know this was a lot of information to digest, and information can feel a little scary and disempowering now, but you are empowered, you are strong, you are awesome. Even if you don't feel like it, like deep down you are, and that's okay if you don't always feel like it. So let's end with some feminist affirmations to sort of keep us centered and feeling good. Deep breath. Feel free to say it with me or repeat it in your head. My worth is not defined by male validation. My worth is not defined by male validation. My worth is not defined by male validation. I will create and thrive in women-centered spaces. I will create and thrive in women-centered spaces. I will create and thrive in women-centered spaces. And my favorite one for the day, the patriarchy's hierarchy has no hold on me. The patriarchy's hierarchy has no hold on me. The patriarchy's hierarchy has no hold on me. Well, on that note, let's wrap it up. That's our episode for today. Thank you so much for joining. Today, we unpacked how homosocial dynamics fuel the patriarchy, why men prioritize impressing each other, and how women can rise above it or maybe run away from it is more what we did. Share this episode with one of your friends who's over bro culture, or share it with someone who's ready to build a world that isn't run by Chad and his buddies. Let us know what you thought about the episode. Again, like, subscribe, comment, do all the things. I'm so excited to be here sharing this info with you guys and creating these conversations with you guys. So I want to hear from you and know what else you'd like to see and how you're feeling. Share your thoughts. I hope to see you next time, where we will be talking about why the patriarchy is bad for everyone. Global warming edition. Because, surprise, the same billionaires who are hoarding wealth and power are also torching the planet, all while telling us to recycle our oat milk cartons. Like, that's gonna fix it. Remember the whole don't use plastic straws thing? Come on. I'll see you next week where we'll be breaking down how capitalism, greed, and good old-fashioned misogyny are fueling climate destruction. And most importantly, why a matriarchal approach might be the key to saving everybody. See you then! Thank you again for listening to this episode of Stay at Home Feminist. Keep smashing the patriarchy with your humor, with your compassion, and with your side eye and or eye roll for the bros.